Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a life story that honestly reads more like a specialized training manual than a typical biography.
It really does.
We're trying to solve a bit of a puzzle. How does one person, a single life, combine the deep spiritual isolation of a monk?
With the harsh discipline of a soldier.
Right, and then add the pragmatism of a finance guy and the political skill of a national negotiator.
It's a mix that just doesn't seem to fit together, but it perfectly defines the life of Anba, the Metropolitan of Tanta. And for this deep dive, we're using a really insightful article by Dr. Mohammed El-Hafawi as our framework.
And our goal today isn't just to list events in order, we're doing more of a dissection.
Exactly. The source talks about these specific stations in his life, and we want to understand how these wildly different experiences ended up serving as training for the leadership role he has now.
It's like we're piecing together the curriculum that creates a modern church leader.
And we have to start at the very beginning, with a calling that began when he was just a kid.
Let's unpack that. The sources trace this huge life decision back to when he was 11 years old.
11 is almost unbelievable.
He's in Sunday school, and his teacher, who is described as a very spiritually filled servant, tells the story of Anba Antonios, the father of monks.
And what's incredible is the immediate effect it had. Anba himself said later that a servant who is, filled with the Spirit
Right.
and who knows how to connect with that age group can be just incredibly influential. This wasn't just a cool story for him. It was a life model being presented at the most formative age possible.
It sounds like a real big bang moment for him where his whole future just clicked into place. But, holding on to a childhood dream like that often means sacrificing practicality. Where did the realism come from?
Well, that's where his university path is so revealing. This was not some naive kid. He excelled in the Faculty of Science at Tanta University.
So he was on the academic fast track.
Absolutely. He was offered a secure, prestigious position as a university teaching assistant.
Which, for anyone in that field in Egypt, is. That's the goal. It's a guaranteed, respected career. And he said no.
He just walked away. That refusal is such a powerful moment. It's one thing to have a spiritual ambition, but it's another thing entirely to turn down a comfortable, guaranteed future to chase it.
Especially when that dream is still, totally abstract at that point.
It just shows a level of conviction that most people simply don't have.
But the seeds of that other side, the administrative side, were already being planted, right?
Yes, and this is a fascinating detail. While he's still a university student, during his summer breaks, he wasn't just, reading spiritual texts.
What was he doing?
He was managing the financial and administrative affairs for the convent of St. Damiana.
As a student.
As a student, this is such a critical piece of the puzzle. It shows he wasn't just seeking contemplation. He was already dealing with budgets, logistics, real-world problems.
So the blend of the spiritual and the practical started way back then.
Way back. It was this unintentional but incredibly valuable training ground for everything that would come later.
Okay, so he chooses the spiritual path over the academic one. He's committed to monasticism. But before he can even get there, his life takes this huge detour.
A very severe one, straight into the Egyptian armed forces.
And you couldn't imagine a bigger contrast. He's looking for the quiet of a monastery, and instead he gets the structure and the harshness of military life. The total opposite.
The very antithesis of it. And the details of his service are just staggering. He was posted to a cabin on top of an 800-meter mountain in Aswan.
So this wasn't just a regular base. This was extreme isolation.
Near total isolation. The source makes a point of saying he only had 3 vacations during his entire service.
Wow. Most people would see that as a huge setback, a delay. Something designed to break you.
You'd think so, right? You're physically cut off, socially isolated, under strict military discipline.
But his own take on it just completely flips that narrative. He said the armed forces period gave him the greatest spiritual benefit of his life.
The greatest contact with God's work. It's an astonishing statement.
It really is. What does that tell you?
It tells you about his immense inner capacity. Instead of fighting the environment, he used it. He turned that forced isolation into a kind of supercharged spiritual retreat. A khalwa.
So the mountain wasn't an obstacle. It became the crucible.
Exactly. The source calls it a real school in patience and endurance. The psychological toughness, the discipline to manage that solitude, all of that was forged in the military.
And those are the exact skills you'd need later for high-pressure leadership roles.
Precisely. The soldiers' discipline perfected the monks' dedication.
So when he finally comes out of that crucible, the whole trajectory changes. It goes from this long preparation to just radical acceleration. The timeline of his rise in the church is unbelievable.
It really is. And it tells us that Pope Shenouda and the leadership saw something special in him. Let's just run through the dates.
Okay, March 1976, he enters El Baramis Monastery.
Just 1 month later, April 1976, he's ordained a monk. He gets the name Toma El Baramusi.
Then what, 2 months after that?
2 months, June 1976, he becomes a priest, which is already fast. But the next year is where you see the real institutional bet they're making.
In May 1977, less than a year later, he's made a hegumen, or kumis.
Which is a very senior rank, a sign of great spiritual maturity.
And then in the very same month.
That same month, May 1977, he is ordained a bishop.
Wait, let's just pause there. From a civilian just out of the army to a bishop in under 2 years.
It's an almost unheard of speed.
It's more than speed. It's a huge gamble by the church, isn't it?
It signals that Pope Shenouda was actively looking for a new kind of leader, not just piety, but discipline, intellect, and proven administrative skill. They saw a commander.
And they immediately gave him massive responsibility to test that. March 1989, he's made head of the General Clerical Council for Personal Status. For those who might not know, why is that such a big deal?
Oh, it's hugely sensitive. That council is basically the church's judiciary for family matters. Divorce, inheritance, custody. It's a legal and emotional minefield.
It requires immense diplomatic skill.
And legal realism, yeah. And then just 3 months later, June 1989, he's made Bishop of Tanta. And this is when Pope Shenouda says that famous line.
The double benefit quote.
That's the one. He told him, your interest is in Tanta, and Tanta's interest is in you.
I love that phrase. It's not just an appointment, it's a strategic investment.
That's exactly what it is. It's a dual vision. Pope Shenouda knew a big, complex place like Tanta needed Anba skills.
Well, he also knew that the weight of that job would force Anba to grow into his full potential.
Exactly. It was a challenge designed to unlock his final level of capability.
And that trajectory was validated for decades, right up until 2018, when Pope Tawadros II made him Metropolitan of Tanta. Which brings us to the two key leadership models in his life, Pope Shenouda and Pope Tawadros.
His relationship with Pope Shenouda was clearly foundational. He called him a father, teacher, and ideal.
The language he uses is so powerful. The great saint, an encyclopedia of knowledge.
The founder of the contemporary church. You can feel the reverence.
So what was the lesson there?
The lesson was that a true leader has to be encyclopedic. They need deep spiritual knowledge, yes, but also deep intellectual knowledge. They have to understand the world, not be isolated from it. That's the Shenouda model.
The scholar-theologian.
Yes, but then his view of Pope Tawadros II is so different and just as appreciative.
Right. He praises him as the peak of administrative and organizational performance.
He uses these modern management terms, brilliant, intelligent, wise, and crucially, someone who never loses anyone. It's about operational skill and relational intelligence.
So the big insight for you, the listener, is that he values both. He sees the need for the deep scholar.
And he also sees the absolute necessity of the brilliant modern administrator.
He gets that the church today needs both skill sets.
And it was that second skill set, the administrative one, that Pope Tawadros immediately put to use on the national stage.
This is where all that early training, the university administration, the military isolation, it all comes together.
On the biggest possible stage. The source points to 3 massive national files he was given. First, representing the church on the committee drafting the entire Egyptian constitution.
I mean, that's defining the future of church-state relations.
Then you have the really thorny domestic issues, like the church building permits file, an issue that caused friction for decades.
And finally, the personal status law, the very thing he started with back in '89.
Right. And all of these require someone who can be tough on principle, but pragmatic in negotiation with the state. The administrator trained on that lonely mountain is now shaping national policy.
But with all this focus on administration and negotiation, the source is careful to remind us of his core spiritual identity.
Very careful. We have that direct quote from him where he draws the line. He says, "Personally, I will never accept silence regarding any offense directed at the Holy Bible."
The pragmatist has his limits.
The defender of the faith comes first. And you can see this balancing act in smaller decisions too, like the 2021 investment decision.
Yes. The decision to ban things like shorts or ripped pants for guests at church events.
It caused a bit of a stir, but the motivation wasn't about personal judgment.
It was about The public spiritual atmosphere.
Exactly. It was about prioritizing the sanctity of the place for the entire community. The collective spiritual good, in that view, outweighs an individual's choice of clothing for that specific space. It's a very practical application of a high theological idea.
And to wrap this up, there's this wonderful full circle moment with his academic career.
The one he rejected all those years ago?
He turned down that teaching post at Tanta University.
But the desire to teach, it never left him. And now his academic work has returned, but on a global scale. He lectures at Coptic colleges everywhere: Cairo, New Jersey, Frankfurt, Paris.
His classroom is now the world.
So when you synthesize this whole life, the monk, the soldier, the negotiator, the real power of his influence comes from combining two things that seem like opposites.
On one hand, you have that deep spirituality, forged in the total isolation of that 800-meter mountain.
And on the other hand, you have this incredibly sharp, severe realism. A proven ability to handle the most complex legal and administrative files at the highest levels.
The transcendent discipline and the hyper-practical mind.
That combination is what makes him such a uniquely effective leader. It's a testament to the idea that preparation for leadership can come from the most unexpected places.
It certainly forces you to rethink what leadership experience really means. We tend to think it's all about constant engagement, networking, but maybe not. And that brings us to our final thought for you to take away. Does the ultimate effectiveness of a public leader, someone who deals with complex social and political issues, require that prior crucible of extreme self-imposed isolation? Or can that same spiritual and psychological resilience only be forged in the constant, noisy engagement of the world? Something to mull over.